Well, welcome. My name is Matt Reiser. It's great to be here. I am a licensed psychologist at Counseling Services. I'm also the biofeedback coordinator there, and I'll talk a little bit about biofeedback today. If you didn't get a chance to get some of the handouts up front, we'll be talking about them. But yeah, today we're talking about finding the balance at K-State, okay? Let's see if this works for me. Yeah, finding the balance. If you look at this, all of these different categories, social development, nutrition, emotions, behavior, stress, school, personal enhancement. As a therapist, it seems like when we get students that come in and come seeking our services at Counseling Services, it seems like one of these things are a little bit off in their life, okay? If all of these things are good and things are going well and there's this good balance, students don't seek us out, okay? However, when one of these areas maybe gets a little bit off, if there's kind of issues or things going on, something happens in their life, and then one of these categories or several of these categories kind of overlap, then students will come in and others as well. They'll come in and see us. And when I talk about finding the balance, it really is this juggling. I mean, we all have 168 hours in a week, right? But finding that balance of figuring out how to balance our schoolwork and studying and spending time with friends and being able to exercise and get good sleep. College is a very stressful time. It's a very difficult time to get a lot of these things, okay? Doesn't mean it can't be done, but you have to find the balance. And so today we're going to talk about a few things. We're going to talk about stress management. We're going to talk about biofeedback and its applications. We'll talk about stress. And I'll actually have you practice a little bit of relaxation kind of in the middle as well. And introduce you, give you a lot of information so that you can then leave this presentation and you can go and you can kind of evaluate on that handout that I gave you these areas in your own life. And you can kind of take an assessment and you can say, how am I doing in this area? Is it good? Do I need more of this? Do I need less of this? Is there something that I could change in my life right now to enhance this area, okay? And there might be other areas that you could add to this, but it's kind of to get you thinking about, again, finding that balance. And I'm hoping that this is interactive, so you guys feel free to ask questions, and we can stop and do whatever. If something's not clear, then we can kind of talk about it. So, all right. Well, does anybody know what biofeedback is? If you were to define, somebody says, what's biofeedback? What would you say? Okay? So the comment was, biofeedback is like your body talking to you, right? Like you're getting feedback from your body, right? And that's what it is, really. In its simplest form, bio means body. That feedback part, there's information from your body. So there's any device that can give you information from your body, like a heart monitor, okay? If anybody's seen the heart monitors that people have on their watch, it measures their heart rate. That's a biofeedback device, okay? Today I've asked several of you, I think there's about 4 of you maybe in the room now that have a stress thermometer, okay? A stress thermometer works on this principle of skin temperature. Now our body temperature sets the upper limit of skin temperature. So if you're like 98.7 degrees, that's a normal body temperature. Your skin temperature won't ever be able to get that high, okay? But right now, what happens is we've hooked it up to some of your fingers, and it's kind of measuring that blood flow in the capillaries in your finger, okay? So when students come into me and they see me and I sit them down and the biofeedback equipment we have in our lab, I hook them up and I hook them up to something like skin temperature. If they're nervous, anxious, or stressed, what happens is the capillaries in their hands and feet constrict, they get less blood flow, and they get a lower skin temperature. Okay, they might be nervous because it's the first time in the lab. They might be nervous because they don't know who I am and I'm a little weird, right? But if they're able to relax, if I can hook them up to this equipment and have them practice certain relaxation strategies, or if they can think about positive emotions and good things and not worry about anxiety or stress or whatever is kind of contributing to their stress, well, what can happen is they can open up those capillaries in their hands and feet, and they can get a higher skin temperature. Okay, and we can measure that with our biofeedback equipment. In the lab here at Counseling Services, we can measure things like heart rate, we can measure muscle tension, we can attach sensors to measure when people are, again, stressed, they can carry a lot of tension. Does anybody carry tension anywhere in their body that they're aware of specifically? Commonplace? Shoulders is a common. Okay, any others? Okay, I hear things like neck, I hear jaw, some people grind their jaw at night. Forehead is a tension kind of area. Well, sometimes it's upper back, lower back. These are all common places, again, to carry tension. So when we're stressed, we can carry a lot of this tension with us, and it can build up, and it can really be not very good for us. Okay? But if you can learn strategies to deal with distress, to manage kind of what's going on, to learn strategies using the biofeedback equipment per se to increase your skin temperature, decrease your muscle tension, then this can be really helpful for you. So, to some of you that have those temperature gauges, tell me about what your temperature is right now. Does anybody?
92.3.
92? Okay, what's yours? 76? 91?
Mine was 78 when I first turned on, now it's 88.
Okay, was 78, now it's 88. So, and they're all a little bit different, so yours might not be working, okay? But it might also be, actually, it's a little bit cold in here, right? So that can also kind of play a part of it, and I'm also speaking. So when we do kind of our relaxation thing in the middle of this presentation, I'll actually hook myself up and I'll kind of see. There is oftentimes a difference. When I've done this before in presentations, I'm about in the 80s or something, but I can get up into the 90, 92, 94 range when I'm practicing the relaxation piece, okay? So just keep that in mind. But you four kind of watch that and see how it might change. Is stress a good thing or a bad thing? What do you guys think? Okay? Depends on how it's affecting you. Can you say a little bit more about that?
If it's to a point of where you're overwhelmed and you can't handle it, then it's not good. But if it's like a little bit of stress that's pushing you to motivate, then it could potentially be good.
Right. Absolutely. So she said that if you're stressed and like it's overwhelming you, and then it can be really bad. And that's what distress is. Okay, that's what we would call distress. But then you said stress can be good for you if it's kind of motivating you to kind of get some things done, etc. Right? That's eustress. Okay? So when people talk about stress, it can be either one. It can be good or it can be bad. But there are these two differences. And most people think about distress when we're talking about stress. Right? They think of the bad. They think of the negative consequences. But stress can actually be a good thing. It can help motivate us. It can help us to get things done, and it can help us to organize our thoughts and keep us motivated. But there is that if people run out of coping strategies, if they run out of support people, let's say, and they're really dealing with a lot of difficult things and it's coming at them from all different directions, then definitely something that could have been good stress can quickly turn to distress very quickly. If you think about it and kind of our resting or our and this working nervous system activity, when we're relaxed, our breathing it's slower, it's deeper, it's smooth. Our stomach digests normally, we sweat normally, but when we get activated, our muscles can tense up. That's kind of this next part, this fight or flight response. It's this built-in mechanism to alert us of danger, okay? So when we experience something that's activating for us, we may be in danger, like physical danger, but it also could be something we're worried about or anxious or really, really stressful and overwhelming. And then we might kick into this fight or flight response. We get a lot of adrenaline pumping through our body. We experience fear and panic. Our digestion shuts down. Our breathing is more shallow and rapid. Our muscles tense up. We can't concentrate. A lot of students come in and they'll say, I just have a hard time concentrating right now. And concentration can be several number of, there's a lot of things that could feed into poor concentration. It could be some anxiety. It could be stress. It could be things related to like ADHD, okay? But a lot of times it seems like, there's a lot of psychological stress going on for students. College is a very stressful time. And then students are kind of kicking into this fight or flight response. And really what's helpful is helping distinguish physical danger versus the psychological stress. Okay, figuring out what we can do to, hopefully you're not in danger. If you are, then run away. That's the flight response. But most of the time what we see is that it is the psychological stress. And then it's figuring out how to calm the mind, relax the body, increase these coping strategies to dealing with the distress so that you can get back to that balanced place of feeling good about, you're caught up in your schoolwork, relationships are good, you got support, you're finding happiness, you're studying, you're getting some social interaction. And then again, they've kind of figured that out. But definitely there's times of the semester, getting near finals week when a lot of stress kind of builds up. You might spend less time with your friends and maybe a little bit more time studying and cramming. And that's why you have to find that balance. It's different for everybody. And you definitely, I tell students, leading up to finals week, we don't want you to be hanging around stressful people, okay? We don't want you to just hang around with other friends that increase your anxiety, okay? Because what we want you to do is be able to lower that stress. Yes, you've got a lot of finals maybe, but you can manage it. You can prepare for them, you can study for them, you can feel confident going in, and that's how you're going to perform the best on your tests. If you know the material, if you're relaxed and calm, you get a good night's rest, you can concentrate, then you can perform at that high level. The impact of stress, stress can build up over the course of a semester, and you can see all of these things that happen. We see students that come in with depression. We see students that come in that their immune system has given out because they just can't handle everything that they're trying to juggle. And it's really difficult. They can feel overwhelmed. They can have, difficulty sleeping is a common thing that we see. And so again, we're trying to help them develop those coping skills and work through whatever they need to work through. We can treat depression and anxiety and the other things that they're coming in with. But a lot of times it also is finding that balance, getting them back to what they're saying is kind of normal and normal for them, and figuring out, again, how we can get back there. And it just takes learning the techniques. It takes understanding what's going on for ourselves, so increasing that awareness. In the biofeedback lab, we talk about increasing the mind-body connection. I know here at Cat Chats, they've had a presentation on mindfulness. They've had a presentation on anxiety. So there's a lot of overlap in all of these presentations because there are a lot of the things that we're still encouraging students to do on a regular basis. Again, finding that balance and increasing your coping skills and being aware of what's going on in the present moment. I gave you a handout maybe on some factors that are contributing to stress, sources of stress, things like environmental sources, interpersonal, physiological, intrapersonal. If you think about it, there's a lot of demands on us, a lot of demands on college students, and so sources of stress can kind of come from anywhere. And I also want to just talk about briefly cultural considerations. If your family culture that you grew up in, if their way of handling stress was just to avoid it, well, then you might have picked that up in your family culture, right? Or when I was about 19 years old, I went to live in Brazil, and that was a foreign country for me, and it was very stressful to adjust to that new culture because the way that they handled things was a little bit different. The good thing was that Brazil was a little bit more laid back, right, than North America, than the United States. So that helped me to kind of transition to a new place, a new culture, learning a new language, which were all these stressful kinds of things going on, right? So definitely the things that you've learned kind of growing up from family and friends and, again, all these other contributing factors, they contribute to your overall stress levels. But it really depends on how you manage your stress, okay? What are, maybe people that what are some of the ways that people handle stress well that you've heard of? What do people do when they're stressed? Good things that they do to help them de-stress. Or what do you guys do? Say again? Use a stress ball. Okay, great. What else? Running, exercise. Okay, great. Music. Excellent. Anything else that's effective that you guys have found? Taking a walk, breathing. Excellent. I tell students, whatever you're doing, if it works for you and you're not hurting yourself or somebody else, then that's a great coping strategy, and you can go to that over and over again. And we just want to develop several coping strategies, right? So yeah, there's some here. You can do relaxation strategies. We talked about crying, actually. It works. Talking it out, taking a break, punching a punching bag. All of those things can be good coping strategies to stress. What about the things that are not so helpful? What are some of the things maybe you've heard of other people when they've been distressed and maybe didn't handle it in the best way? How do they cope with it?
Yelling or getting angry.
Okay? Yelling, anger. Anything else? I mean, you can see some of them on here. I label it the good, the bad, and the ugly. Okay? Because bad ways, you might criticize yourself, you might blame others, you might, just use the internet, or you might be an emotional eater. Like that's not the best way of coping with the stress, but it's not really harmful to yourself or others. The ugly stuff really is harmful. It's harmful to yourself or others, and you see that. It could be use of substances, it could be road rage, getting into fights, okay, maybe some of that anger stuff, where you're actually, it's a harmful way. A better way of handling that anger is actually going and punching a punching bag as opposed to another person. But again, everybody's a little bit different. So when we talk about exercise, getting those larger muscle groups kind of involved, it triggers the nervous system, and it's good for our bodies. It helps to get out some of that energy. I know for me, when I've been stressed and adrenaline is building up, right? If I go for a run, it's great. I love it. It helps get out some of that stuff, and I feel a lot better afterwards. Again, the relaxation, biofeedback stuff, training the mind and the body to let go of tension and stress, changing thoughts and perceptions about the stressors. Sometimes the difficulty is our perception of the stressful event. So somebody could get in a car accident, and they could have two different perceptions of what was going on. They could maybe be a little bit worried about their child in the back seat, and that's their focus. Or they could have that road rage. They could be chewing out the person that hit them, right? And that's a different, it's the same event, it's the same car accident, but it's a different perception of maybe what's most important at that moment. So a lot of times, if you can change the perception, there might be like this really stressful friend or this relationship situation that's kind of going on. But if you can change your perception about the person or the event, and that's a great thing about perceptions or beliefs, is we can change them. We can see things maybe a little bit differently. We can understand how somebody else is perceiving that, and it can actually change for ourselves. And then it's a little bit easier maybe to not be so reactive or not be so focused on maybe my perspective, because you're taking into kind of, maybe some other perspectives that you hadn't considered. And so a lot of these things can work together in order to help us to decrease the cycle, and not get psychologically overloaded or overwhelmed. This is the stress and performance curve. It's on one of your handouts. Again, that level of stress, there's this place in the middle where some stress is actually really good, like we talked about, to peak performance. But if you get too overwhelmed, then you see all these other things going on. Again, you can't concentrate. People avoid difficult tasks. If it's too overwhelming, they'll just avoid it because they're overloaded, and you can't perform at a high level when you're just overwhelmed. And that's what people do. They just avoid it. Okay? So our hope is developing those coping skills and understanding all the contributing factors to our distress. And then it's our choices of managing that stress effectively. I want to play a audio recording for you guys. In the lab, in the biofeedback lab, we teach several different relaxation strategies. And today I'll have you listen to this relaxation recording, but I want you to listen to, again, what words are used, what you hear, maybe the different kinds of strategies, and I'll kind of follow up with you afterwards. For those of you who are hooked up to the stress thermometers, you can close your eyes, everybody can close your eyes and try and allow yourself to relax. But as you're listening, those with the skin temperatures, you can kind of notice where you're at right now, and we'll do this for about 5 or 6 minutes. After the 6 minutes kind of relaxation, kind of notice if there's any change with those stress thermometers. You can focus on what we call abdominal breathing, which is expanding your stomach. Your chest kind of will still move, but if you're expanding your stomach, you're slowing your breathing rate down a little bit, That's going to help bring feelings of relaxation for you, okay? So I'll play this recording, and then afterwards we'll kind of just talk about, again, maybe some of the things that you notice in your own body. You might have noticed some tension somewhere. You might notice, again, different things with the recordings or your thoughts. If you have thoughts that kind of take you elsewhere, you can observe those thoughts. You don't need to judge them. You can just focus, back on your breathing or listening to the recording. And then we'll just kind of talk about that after that. So, okay. Whoops.
Day after day, the high-speed, high-pressure, high-impact environment places a terrific load of stress upon you as you strive to survive, to succeed, and to achieve excellence. To balance this stress and to maintain a high level of health and wellness, let yourself pause. Pause. Take a few moments to let go of unnecessary stress and balance mind, body, emotion, and spirit. Right now, you can choose to let yourself rise above the stress, to let go, to drift, carried aloft as though floating on a magic carpet of air, floating off through time and space, letting the magic of imagination carry you high into the morning mountain mist, the crisp, clean air, or perhaps to a green cathedral of towering trees, gently enveloped by the forest fragrances and the warm hush of summer breezes that whisper of peace and relaxation. Come here, to this quiet place, far from anything that could disturb you. Reach out and touch the soft moss on the trunk of a tree, the sunlit edge of a fern leaf, the silent feeling of safety. Know that right now, there's no place you need to go, nothing you need to do, and no problem you need to solve. Rest. Here. Now. Breathe in deeply. And as you let it out, let it be a feeling of letting go. Imagine you're breathing out all unnecessary stress, emptying your body of all unnecessary tension, relaxing. And now take another deep breath in, and as you let it go, let the sparkling sound of a nearby waterfall relax your entire body, from head to toe. Imagine you're standing beneath a warm waterfall of liquid relaxation, letting it gently flow over and through your body, its cleansing waters dissolving all tension and discomfort. A warm, liquid massage of relaxation, caressing your face and your neck and shoulders. Come, rest in this beautiful place, letting the soothing sounds and feelings swirl around you, letting your mind and body sink deeper into relaxation as you float around and around and down and down, feeling that liquid feeling of relaxation tumbling and splashing through your arms and forearms, swirling around your elbows and through your hands and fingers, a soft spiral of relaxation flowing through your chest, your abdomen, hips, thighs, rippling gently around your knees and ankles, and surging out through the tips of your toes. And now, floating on that stream, letting it carry you through lush, sunlit meadows of brilliant wildflowers that fill the air with the sweet aroma of life. With each breath in, savoring that fragrance, breathing in the colors, letting them swirl through your body. Feel the joyful energy of the midday sun nurturing every organ of your body, caressing every muscle, filling you with relaxation. And as all tension drains away, flowing out of your body like a river, flowing endlessly to the sea, dissolving in the deep, blue, surging waters. Let yourself really be here. Let your imagination fill in all the details. Hearing the waves as they crash on the rocks and sand. The sea fresh smell of the ocean reaches your nostrils as you breathe in deeply. Feeling the cool, moist on your face. And tasting the salty taste on your lips as the foam sweeps across the damp sand. Wiping away all unnecessary thoughts from your mind like a wave wiping away marks from the sand. Watching wave after wave after wave wash over the sand, letting the healing waves of relaxation and peace wash over your body.
Okay, I'm going to stop it there. Okay, so what did you guys notice? Either with yourselves, with your body, with thoughts, or the recording. What did you notice? It got colder? Okay, what do you mean colder? Like colder in here, or you felt the coldness in the room? Okay, I felt it too. It's a little cold in here. But I was more aware of it, see, as I was doing that. Maybe less aware when I'm up here kind of talking. What else? What did you guys notice with yourselves or with the recording? It's nice to rest your eyes? Yeah. So, I looked, at some point, most of you are closing your eyes. Most people, I would say, it's easier for them to relax when they're closing their eyes. You know, part of that is when our eyes are open, we're just taking in a lot of information. Okay, we're taking in a lot of visual information, and our brain kind of has to sort that out. So when you close your eyes, it's just a little bit easier, probably for most people, to have a little less stimuli, a little less information, and their brain can sort out maybe what they're listening to. So, okay, anything else? Anybody notice anything with their bodies, any tension, or could you feel like can you feel like you're sitting in the chair? Were you more aware of that, or any of that going on? Okay, less aware. Am I?
I totally thought that because I was like, I don't feel more. And then I was like, okay.
Okay.
I want me to come back to that. That was weird.
Yeah. So again, the comment was she was less aware that she wore her hat, and if you're listening to this recording, if you kind of drift off into this, I don't know, if you could imagine being by that waterfall, right, and you're kind of focused, then yeah, your thoughts are really not on, do I have a hat on? Is my hat still on? Right? Like you had to kind of recheck and say, oh, yep, got my hat on. Well, oftentimes that's the case for us, right? Like in the biofeedback lab, and when students come in and they're really, really stressed, they just got to have a test, I'm like, okay, great, let's hook you up. But if they can focus on what they're doing in the present moment, right? Like not worrying about their previous test and how they did. And they're, again, judging, did I fail it? I didn't know a lot of questions, whatever. I'm going to worry about it. If they can just focus on what's going on in that present moment, if they can allow themselves to relax, if they can, visualization, visual imagery is one of those other techniques that we teach in the lab. You heard some of that. He was describing this relaxing waterfall place. And if you can get into that with your senses, if you can smell what that waterfall might be like, if you can feel the cool water as you dip your toes into it, if you can that's a skill. If you can get into that, and your body can relax right now in this moment, then this upcoming week when you have a stressful interaction with your roommate, right, or you have a stressful test or what have you, you can also go back in your mind and say, hey, I'm going to take a time, I'm going to do some of that abdominal breathing, just relax. I'm going to think back about that waterfall, and then your mind and your body can reconnect to the feelings of relaxation you felt here in this room listening to that waterfall. And it can help you to relax in that moment. And that can actually help you, if you did that before the test, you could help you to go into that test if you've studied. Now, you should be anxious if you didn't study, okay? But if you've studied, and you can go in with confidence and you can go in relaxed, it's going to give you the best chance of retrieving that information that you've studied and perform at a high level, right? So, again, all of this, I mean, it is finding that balance. It is developing these different skills. You know, when I tell students, find the skills that work for you. If something doesn't work for you, if one of the recordings was awful, you're like, oh, I hate that voice. It doesn't work for me. Can't do the visual imagery thing. That's fine. There's other techniques that are maybe less abstract and more concrete that you can practice. You know, some students really like the progressive muscle relaxation where you're tensing muscles and then you're relaxing it and you're systematically going throughout the rest of your body. That's maybe something that they like. It helps activate them. I use that in the morning. Sometimes when I'm feeling sluggish, it helps activate me. Other students use it, you know, they use it at night when they're trying to fall asleep because that's what helps them relieve tension in their body. So the more of the strategies that you're using and these coping skills, I mean, you might ask some of your friends, what do you do to kind of relax or to deal with the stress of college? And, you know, people de-stress, and they de-stress in different ways. And the hope is that they're de-stressing in ways that aren't harmful to themselves or others, and it's effective. You know, we turn to some of those maladapting coping strategies because they work. We know they work, but they also can create more problems for us, or they can create additional stressors that just aren't needed. And that's why it is kind of finding that balance and finding the healthy coping strategies that work for us. So, okay. I'm going to talk about changing thoughts maybe just a little bit. If you see this left-hand side, you could probably recognize maybe some of these that you've said to yourselves in the past, and you could come up with your own list. But if your focus is a thought like, I'll never do this right, you know, it must be my fault. I should be more like XYZ, right? The should sometimes get us into trouble. It creates tension and stress for us. But on the other side are other statements, and again, this is how we can change our thoughts or perceptions or our beliefs is, if you say things like, you know, it's not worth getting upset over. I can handle it. My best is good enough. You know, there's a lot of times where I hear students saying, I'm not good enough, and they're making comparisons, and they're comparing themselves to other people or standards, and they feel a lot of times not good enough. But that's when they kind of have to go back to, okay, is this statement, is it increasing my distress or is it decreasing my distress? And can I come up with these statements on these other sides to reduce my tension today and tomorrow and in the future? Again, being able to change those thoughts or challenge some of those thoughts, that can have a significant impact into the stress that you're carrying in your body, in the, you know, your abilities to manage the stress over the course of a semester. But it does take practice. I would say with all of this stuff, it takes practice. Sometimes I'll see students and then 2 weeks later, they haven't practiced any of the strategies that we talked about in the biofeedback lab. And though that's okay because I can practice with them when they come, it's actually better for them to take 5 or 10 minutes a day to relax, to practice different techniques, to get a sense of maybe what works for them or what doesn't work for them. And then when they come back and see me, then we can kind of figure out again where they're getting stuck, which strategies they want to learn more about, which ones that, again, work. We know which ones maybe didn't work for them because they found that out. So, how we explain events. Again, bad events, getting negative feedback from a supervisor might be this bad event, but again, we can kind of think about it in different ways. We can think about it as I'll never be good enough, or we can think about it, now that I know what I'm doing wrong, I can improve, right? Again, another example, like getting a promotion, like that's a good event, but a pessimistic kind of take on that would be, you know, I worked hard on that project, and that's very specific, But a universal, an optimistic approach might be, I'm a valuable employee. So you're extrapolating it again to maybe a more broader universal application. But these are all things that, again, make difference. The way that we kind of perceive the event can have this effect on our overall stress and optimism. And you might know people, again, that have kind of this pessimistic attitude, right? Like it's always the glass half empty as opposed to the glass half full. I'm just going to talk really quick about stress busters. I mean, obviously, there's so many things that we can do. Eating well and getting enough sleep. I actually tell students that, sleep, exercise, and nutrition, your body needs all of them, and they're actually natural antidepressants. Okay, so again, depression is something that we see a lot in the counseling center. But if students, and these are some of the things that they might have a little bit more influence over in their life, right? So if they come in and there's depression and there's things contributing to the depression, well, we want to kind of figure out how they can get some of these other things and balance them as well. The nutrition, the sleep, and the exercise. Improving time management skills, learning to tolerate and manage emotions. There's a handout up here about a skills training that we're also doing. It covered mindfulness, and that's kind of already passed, but it also has these other modules of distress tolerance, emotion regulation, and interpersonal effectiveness. So being able to tolerate difficult emotions is a skill that can be developed and can be learned. And again, going back to that culture piece, if your family's way of handling emotions was maybe just to avoid them, right? Or again, you weren't allowed to ever be angry, then sometimes that's where people bottle up these emotions and then they kind of erupt. When the stress gets too much and too overwhelming, then we can see an eruption sometime. And it's just not the best way of maybe managing all of that distress. 10 seconds to relaxation. Any of these phrases could be good things for you. When I teach about a skill like self-hypnosis, I teach about positive affirmation phrases, things that students are working on. And in a relaxed state, the way that self-hypnosis can work is you're more suggestible to certain suggestions, right? So in a relaxed state, you can suggest a phrase like, I can do this. I am learning how to manage my stress more effectively. And your brain kind of files that away, and in its subconscious, then during the week when you've got all this stuff going on and you've got socializing and classes and homework and what have you, your brain is still kind of sitting with that suggestion, that positive affirmation of, I can handle this. I'm learning how to manage my stress in healthy ways. And it can make a difference. So, finding the balance. Definitely, college is a stressful time for all of these things. Being able to develop those skills, being able to work on with perceptions, work with emotions, work with coping strategies and relaxation. It's all about, figuring out how to get the things that any of those areas where you're out of balance. It's kind of making those small adjustments. Most people, most college students we actually don't see in the counseling center because they're kind of managing this stuff pretty well. But every now and then, again, when people come in, they've probably gotten to a place where, I really need to talk to somebody. I really need to get some help. And it might have been maybe a little bit too late. They probably should have come in a little bit earlier, but definitely being able to make those necessary adjustments. Some students just need a couple of counseling sessions and they can get back on track. They've figured out kind of how to manage these things that were a little out of balance. But there's definitely a lot of resources on campus that here at K-State you have access to. We also offer group therapy at Counseling Services. I had one of the students tell me about group. He's like, this is one of the best things I did at K-State. And he was a senior and he didn't know about that we offered group therapy at the Counseling Center. And it was a really great experience for him. And I said, can I quote you on that? And he said, yeah, go ahead. We have these cat chats. We have counseling services. You can do individual or group therapy. We have the skills training that I kind of talked about. Talking with your family and friends, leaning on support system. Some people just don't have a support system that they can lean on, and that can really make a difference. So definitely reaching out to those people when you're struggling, when you find something out of balance, being able to lean on a support system, that can also make a difference. So that's all I have for today's presentation. Are there any questions that maybe would be helpful for anybody to know, or any of these things that maybe where they're getting stuck would be helpful for, again, maybe a little bit more of an explanation? All right, so I guess I covered it. So again, feel free to come and see us if you need to at Counseling Services. Hopefully you got something today that you can take with you. And there was one handout where I gave some audio recordings of our counseling center and another place online. And the other place you can actually download those recordings and put them on your computer, iPad, what have you. So again, I would encourage you to do that. Find the techniques that work for you, practice them. Analyze kind of what's going on with those different areas in your life. And yeah, it was great to be with you guys today. So thanks for coming.